Let's make some tortellini soup. We're going to start with better than bouillon garlic paste because I don't have any garlic. My secret ingredient is sun-dried tomatoes and bacon. We're also going to use some ground sausage. I prefer the spicy sausage, but the store only had mild. You're going to use some scissors and cut up that bacon into tiny pieces. You're going to fry it for just a couple minutes before you add in half of an onion. I chopped up half of an onion that I had left over from sandwiches I made yesterday, and also the ground sausage. You're going to put about a spoonful of that better than bouillon garlic paste, but you can use chopped garlic or minced garlic if you prefer. That's just what I had. And we're going to saute that all in a pan together. Here's a little tip. Someone told me that they have trouble with ground sausage getting it to cut up in the pan because it's not as easy to separate as, say, ground beef. So what I do is I take it out of the package and then I just pinch off pieces to the size that I like. Of course, you're going to wash your hands before and after you do that really well. That should go without saying. But if you just pinch it off like that, it makes it so easy. You get the exact size that you want. So I'm using a medium to high heat for this. I prefer, especially when I'm cooking with any type of pork, that my meat is very, very brown, almost crispy on the outside. But that's just my personal preference. In another pan, I'm adding butter and lemon juice. Let's go back and season our meat. Now that it's brown, I'm going to use a good amount of Italian seasoning, a good amount of garlic powder, a good amount of pepper, and a little bit of paprika. I am not going to add any salt because bacon is very salty, and also the better than bouillon is very salty, so I don't need to add any salt to this. But if your preference is a more salty dish, then you could add a little bit of salt, but just be careful, especially if you're using better than bouillon because it is very salty. I'm going to give that a good mix and let it cook a little bit more while I work on what I'm making in the other pots. So in the pot that I have the butter, I cut up some grape tomatoes and I'm going to add those. I'm going to add that jar of sun-dried tomatoes. Sun-dried tomatoes are so good if you've never tried them before. They are so delicious, and anytime you use a cream sauce, this tastes so good in a cream sauce. I'm going to put a little bit of those sun-dried tomatoes, just a little bit, in the pot with the meat. Let that cook for just a little bit before I add it to the big pot, which I've done now. I also am using a full can of tomato paste. Now we're going to just continue to cook it a little bit in this big pot. We're going to add in 2 cups of chicken broth. If you want it more saucy and less thick, you'll use 4 cups of chicken broth. I only use 2. Like a thicker sauce, and you'll also use less tomato paste, like half a can of tomato paste. But like I said, I like my sauce a little thicker and less soupy. Then I'm going to add in a measuring cup 2 cups of heavy whipping cream and about a 1/3 cup of flour. We're going to whisk that together. Also, if you want it more soupy, you're going to use less flour. You can also use half and half instead of heavy whipping cream if you want a thinner sauce. So now we are going to mix that in with our mixture. You're going to see that my sauce is going to end up being very, very thick in the end, and less soupy. But like I said, you can use less tomato paste, less flour, more chicken broth, and that will make yours more of a soup consistency. In another pot, I'm going to add some water and salt. Just a little bit of salt, and we are going to add in our tortellini. I got my tortellini just already made at the store. We're not making it from scratch. In the sauce, I'm going to add about half of this container of Parmesan cheese, maybe a little more than half, and mix that in. You're going to have to keep stirring this really well, otherwise your cheese will burn at the bottom. And also, I didn't say this before, but once you start adding all this together, you just need to lower the heat. Once your tortellini is done, you're going to add it to the pot. Tortellini should only take, because it's already made, about 3 to 5 minutes to cook, and then you can add it to this sauce. And this recipe is so delicious, so filling, and so good. 10 out of 10, I recommend this. So yummy.